Hey, what's going on? I am Ryan Muncie, your host of the House of Strength podcast, and today we are chatting with David Claiborne, owner of Genesis Fitness and Performance in Houston, Texas. DC, thank you so much, man, for hanging out and sharing some knowledge on our podcast today.
No problem. Glad. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Let's get right into it. Like we said in the intro, you are the owner of Genesis Fitness and Performance in Houston, Texas. Tell us a little bit about the gym and what you guys are doing down there.
We've been open for about 4.5 years now. Started off as pretty much athlete only training, in like a small, like 1,100 square foot warehouse. Nothing but junior high, high school, and a few college guys. And then we kind of grew and got some bigger name pro athletes in, and continued to kind of build out, just getting known as athletes and the place to train, athletes around Houston. And then from there, we had so many parents and ex-athletes that kind of wanted to join in with what we did. And I had some coaches that still wanted to be competitive, and so they did CrossFit competitions and stuff that we affiliated as a CrossFit gym as well, and started offering that in the morning when athletes weren't in the building. And then that grew so much that about a year and a half ago we moved into like an 8,000 square foot facility where one half of it is nothing but our I guess quote unquote CrossFit classes. Goes under kind of 832 CrossFit, and then the other half that's separated by a wall is nothing but our athlete performance side, where they're doing two totally different things, still kind of based around the same strength and conditioning principles though.
Awesome, awesome. So that's you knocked out a couple of my questions right away. I was gonna say, I knew you guys when you started that you got pretty well known for some of the athletes that you guys trained down in Houston, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on why you got into CrossFit with the gym. So well, and you said right there too that even though they're both doing a little bit different stuff, and the emphasis is still on strength. So how are you guys programming for both of those groups?
I mean, each group's kind of still different. One's kind of just general population programming, and the other one, we kind of have our different cycles based off the sport they play and where they are in the year. But again, kind of both of them really go down to the basic principles that we start them all with of getting them healthy and able to move and injury free, and then kind of preparing their body to move and utilize the strength that they already have, and kind of unlock that. And then once they maximize that, start building off of it and developing power and explosiveness and stuff, and really kind of that's kind of the basis on both sides. And then the CrossFit side, we kind of program it more of just getting them more in cardiovascular shape as well, with all the different energy systems based around not training for a specific sport or something like that, while hammering in just general fitness.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of studying, on your own, and you're learning a ton about, strength and conditioning and programming and all that different energy systems. You guys have a really unique approach to the way that you're training your CrossFit competitive athletes. You want to talk a little bit about how you guys are doing that differently than, say a traditional box?
I mean, I think the kind of the biggest thing is it goes back to, like, all our coaches are full-time coaches, and so they kind of love what they do, and study it, and that's what they do as a job. And there's unfortunately a lot of CrossFit gyms out there that just don't have that capability, so they have coaches that fill in, their part-time and have another job and stuff. So I kind of went the other route, as I'd rather pay quality coaches to work full-time, and so when they're not at the gym, that's still what they do, and study and learn to be better, and then send them to seminars and everything. And so I want them to kind of be the best coaches on the floor in Houston, so no matter what situation occurs or kind of where the person's coming from, they're going to get the best coaching and the best training, and kind of because of that, they all have that strength conditioning background and will. That's kind of their passion. And so they like fixing stuff and learning, and we like getting into some pretty heated debates, and we do our programming and stuff like that, because we all come from different backgrounds and want it to be, the best kind of out there in the area.
Yeah, that's really cool. So anytime you're in a situation where you've got multiple I don't want to say opinions, but I guess schools of thought on, getting the same goal accomplished. You're going to come up with the best possible way to do it for, the athletes who are being trained by those people. So that's really cool. All right. Well, I know because of some conversations that we've had in the past that you and I share a lot of similarities in the way that we approach nutrition and our own training and some of our own health habits. So one of the things that you are responsible for introducing me to is oil pulling. The first time I heard this, I was like, what in the hell is oil pulling? So quickly summarize that for our listeners. What is oil pulling, and why should somebody even think about trying this?
Well, I mean, kind of, I had the same opinion you did. It was my wife that introduced it to me, and so I thought it was just horrible sounding and disgusting and everything until I tried it and stuck with it for a couple of weeks. But basically, it's an old method that people have used for, I guess, for a long time in terms of detoxifying kind of their body with the amount of bacteria that lives in the mouth. And then also there's a ton of studies or not really studies, but anecdotal cases of people talking about how it helped remineralize their teeth and get rid of plaque and make their just kind of them overall healthier. And then there's people that even talk about how it's kind of filled in cavities and kind of help regrow tooth decay and stuff like that. Basically all it is you take a high quality oil, a superfine expeller kind of cold processed coconut oil, or you can use ghee, MCT oil, really any of those type of things. And you just plop about a tablespoon in your mouth and swish. Don't gargle, but swish for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week to daily. 10 to 20 minutes, you want to do the first thing you do in the morning, and then you spit it out and can kind of rinse your mouth out with water, and then have a big glass of water and be on with your day. And the first time you do it, it's absolutely disgusting because the coconut oil, and the MCT oil, if you use that, goes in clear. A lot of people use sesame oil too, but it goes in clear, and then you swish and swish and swish. And when you spit, the first time I put it in a bottle just because I was curious, and it came out like a dark gray. And I was like, oh, it's just the bubbles from getting mixed up and everything. And so I let it sit for like a couple hours. And coconut oil, when it gets back to room temperature, solidifies. Well, it never re-solidified, and it never stopped being gray. And so that kind of freaked me out. And so spit that out and stuck with it and kind of just basic tests of it. After you do it the first time, it feels like you flossed when you haven't, and your gums feel sensitive and everything. And then after that, really a couple of weeks of being consistent, I could tell a big difference kind of just with how my teeth felt, sensitivity to like hot and cold. And then I actually am going to the dentist in the middle of July, so I'm curious to see what they say when they take x-rays and everything after doing it for about 4 months.
Yeah, that's really cool. So whether somebody's a skeptic on all that or not, I mean, most people are going to have, or hopefully they've got coconut oil or ghee in their refrigerator or their kitchen already. And, you got nothing to lose trying that for a couple of weeks and seeing if it works for you. That's really cool. I'll be curious to hear what your dentist has to say when you go visit him. So you'll have to let us know, and we'll do an update on the podcast for that.
All right, sounds good.
So that's really cool. And you said you do that first thing in the morning. Anywhere from 3 to 7 days a week. What's your normal morning routine? This is something that I've been asked, and after you go through yours, I'll kind of explain mine too. But let's get your morning routine.
Typically, it's different than most because I still take like ADHD medication. I still take Vyvanse, and so my alarm goes off at like 4:15, and I wake up and take that and actually track my heart rate to get a good like resting heart rate before the medication kicks in. And then I go back to sleep for about an hour to an hour and a half until the medication kicks in and my alarm goes off, and I get up about 5:30 and recheck my heart rate just because I'm trying to do some experiments with kind of that and aerobic training and stuff like that. Get up, use the restroom, let the dogs out, put coffee on, And then while the coffee's being made, I do kind of a quick Bible study and a little meditation, and then make some good butter coffee and sit and then get started on either writing emails to go out to the gym, the blog list, or editing video, or kind of accomplishing one of the three things that, like, the main three tasks that I need to do that day.
Awesome. So what are you using to track your heart rate? Are you do you have an app on your phone, or
Right now I'm just using kind of like a pulse oximeter, and then just recording it and then just put it into my phone, just on a notepad right now. I'm thinking I may actually start using HRV stuff to track it, but I'm talking with kind of like Joel Jameson's guys and the Omega Wave guys as the best way to track it, depending on if it's going to be more accurate before the medication or after the medication, because they're curious. They actually approached me about it because they're curious about how medication affects HRV and everything, because they're thinking more of like college athletes and how so many of them take Adderall and in high school and junior high get diagnosed with ADHD and are on some type of medication like that. And so they're wanting to kind of do some basic experiments regarding training around that medication and how it affects HRV status and recovery and everything. And so I'm going to start being a guinea pig and using either the Omega Wave app, or just some basic HRV stuff once we figure out when to take it and kind of how it goes from there.
That's really cool. How long have you been looking at those numbers, and has it been long enough for you to see any kind of pattern yet?
This is only the third week of actually tracking them. I kind of had an idea that the medication and was screwing up aerobic capacity with training for CrossFit type stuff, and lack of recovery, and just an ability to bring my heart rate down, and how any bit of activity would spike it up no matter how good in shape I got, or how much more in shape I got as I trained. And so I've been tracking it for about 3 weeks, and then added in, I've been doing 4 to 5 times a week pure cardiac output aerobic work, where I'm doing 45 to 75 minutes either running, quote unquote running, on the assault bike or rower, or dragging a sled, where I sit just in that low aerobic heart rate, like 135 to 145 for me. And when I run, it's hard. I haven't been able to stay at a pace that I can of moving out higher than walking for the full 45 to 60 minutes yet. It's kind of when I first started, it was 60 seconds of running, quote unquote, at like a 13 minute per mile pace, and a minute in, I was already at like 165 beats per minute, and then it took like 2.5 minutes to get it back down to like 140. And now it's gotten better, where I can stay in that pace, like a 13-minute pace, for like 4 to 5 minutes and stay below 150. And then when I do start bouncing over, when I walk, I can get it back down under a minute. And so it's taken about 3 weeks of doing that, 4 to 5 times a week of that type of training on top of my other stuff, to kind of start seeing some progress.
Wow. So we've talked about HRV on the podcast, so if people are listening and they've heard some of our previous episodes, then they're going to know HRV, and that's basically monitoring your state of readiness based on the time between heartbeats. And if people are unaware, the medication that you mentioned, Vyvanse, and most ADHD medications are actually in the amphetamine class or family of drugs. So we're talking about something that's going to, it's an upper, it's a stimulant. So we're talking about something that's going to increase your heart rate, but it's also going to have that effect on your nervous system that keeps you in that that fight or flight state.
Right.
And the more you're in that state, the less you're in the recovery and rest state. So that's that's going to give you less time for growth, repair, recovery. Even if that's what you're doing, your internal system is not, because of the medication. So that's kind of the hypothesis, and that's you're finding, and we've found, talking with some other guys, we talked to Andy McCloy and a couple other guys on the podcast with HRV, and basically found that and some other guys who are doing studies that have been published, that the higher your aerobic capacity or that cardiac output, the more resilient you are. So I guess
Yeah.
that's why you're doing what you're doing. You're trying to increase your
Yeah.
resiliency to combat what the medication is doing.
Yeah, and what I'm curious also is I haven't found. I mean, there's not a lot out there, and so I guess my biggest curiosity is if I increase my cardiac output and like lower my resting heart rate to let's say something in the high 50s. If whenever I take my Vyvanse, if no matter what my resting heart rate is before it, if it spikes back up, because typically when I take it, it's in the high 70s.
Wow.
After when I retest it, once it's in there, and so I'm curious to see if I can, if I keep getting it lower and lower to like mid 50s, if I take it and wake up and retest it, am I still going to be in the 70s no matter how much aerobic stuff I do?
Right.
And then once I hit like an anaerobic level or something in the middle of a workout, because that stimulant's already in there, am I just automatically going to shoot to maximum heart rate, or is that aerobic capacity going to be able to kind of keep me recovered and keep me able to work at that level, or does the medication just spike me no matter what I do to build that base? And so that's kind of what I'm trying and trying to figure out and researching and talking to some guys, and come to find out there's a lot of people that are just now starting to look into this, and so everybody has a ton of questions, but nobody really has a lot of answers in regards to this. So it's pretty interesting and giving me an idea of it's forcing me to continue doing it instead of being like, oh, well, that's how it's going to turn out because other people have done this. It's like all of a sudden I got put in the forefront.
Yeah, providing all these. Yeah, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. And you're right. This is it's one of those things that everybody's got more questions than answers, and it seems like everywhere you look, a lot of the coaches in our industry are kind of, they're really starting to get into this heart rate variability stuff, and there's really something to it. I think it's fascinating, and I'm experimenting on it myself, but I don't have the medication side of it, and I think it's really cool what you mentioned with Joel Jamieson and their guys are looking at how it's going to affect or how they can use that information to look at college athletes, and like you said, there are so many of them on that medication. We're definitely going to have to do a follow-up episode with you, man. What's your dentist say about this experiment, and what does what comes of this heart rate stuff? And I think it's cool. We've talked about this with a lot of our guests too. It's that mindset of, I don't know how these things are going to turn out, but I'm going to be a human experiment. I'm going to test these things on myself and see what happens. And I mean, we're not talking about doing crazy stuff here, like hooking car batteries up to us and whatever. But within reason, that it's that N=1 experiment, and for every individual, there is no, there's no blanket statement. There's no one size fits all. So, trying to, get everybody to experiment with these things and find out what works best for you as an individual. So I think it's cool that you're doing that and that you're willing to come on and talk to, everybody about it. So, I know I said that I would kind of answer that question too. So I'm going to run through my morning routine real fast, and then we're going to throw a bunch of other questions at you, DC.
All right.
So my morning routine is kind of similar to yours. Ever since we talked, I've been experimenting with the oil pulling. I am not as dedicated yet as you are. The first couple of days were tough, and it was interesting. Like you said, that coconut oil does not re-solidify. And you're just like, man, that is stuff that was inside of my body, and now it's out. Like, I like to continue to get these toxins or whatever it is, bacteria out. So that's interesting. But on an average day, I'm up. The first thing I do is get downstairs to the kitchen, and I will drink a cup of warm water mixed with lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of sea salt, and some cayenne pepper. And that's my liver detox drink. And then after I drink that, I've got a huge red cup of water. So this is my red cup here. So I always drink one of those after that. And as I'm drinking that first drink, I'm going through, what that day's tasks are. Much like you said, I'm not checking emails yet. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not letting any of that stuff come in and disrupt, my attention and my, intention for that day. So if it's, sending out emails or whatever it is, then I can do that without checking, my email account.
Yeah.
And just, starting to make progress on what we need for the day. And then, like you said too, that bulletproof coffee gets made, and the butter and the MCT oil goes in there, and by that time, I'm in high gear and getting everything done. So some days there are some brain training activities in there. At the gym, we just launched a boxing and MMA style conditioning class. So 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm in there at 6 in the morning, using that as my cardiac output, because like I said, I'm playing with that heart rate variability stuff too. So generally, I will do my heavy lifts on Monday and Wednesday, or sometimes it's Sunday and Wednesday. And then I like to follow that up the following morning with a low CNS type cardiac output. And now it's, I'm testing it with that boxing and MMA class, which is, it's not exactly low CNS, but it does, my average heart rate somewhere around 133 for that class. So an hour of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how my mornings are looking now. So with that question knocked out, we're going to move on to another one. And this is another thing that I think we kind of agree on and have similar habits. We both follow a very paleo type-ish approach to nutrition. What are your thoughts on cheat days? How do you handle them and schedule them? When is kind of the best time in your mind for somebody to have one?
It depends kind of really what my training goals are too. If it's further away from like competitions or stuff like that, then I'm a little more lax and kind of enjoy food more, just because, I make quality, healthy choices anyway. So it's not like, when I say enjoy food more, I'm just like going back to McDonald's day in and day out. It's still, but if it's something that I'm hungry for, one meal or not, then I'll have it and it won't be a big deal and feel guilty. Then as stuff gets closer and start tightening up, then really, I may have one cheat meal kind of at dinner Monday through Friday. One of those days be a cheat meal, go out, and then typically Saturday I just kind of enjoy my food, and then I've done this I guess really about 3 years now, and I first told the idea to Jay Ferrugia, and he kind of was blown away and was like, that's a really good idea. And so I've kind of stuck with it, where Saturday, depending on how bad Saturday is in terms of, if I start the day off with a dozen donuts, it just goes downhill from there. Then I just kind of have a mindset, if it's horrible, then I fast the majority of Sunday. And if it's not that bad, like if I eat pretty clean and then blow out dinner, then I fast like half the day Sunday. And then if it's just a normal eating type day around the house or whatever, then I just have a normal Sunday. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. And so I don't feel as bad Saturday, and I really enjoy it, and kind of, I take it as I'm going to gorge myself and then get sick of that food and never want to look at donut for another month. That type of thing. Then I'm going to have 3 donuts, and then the next day I want 3 more donuts. The next day I want 3 more donuts. I just kind of, I got 12 donuts, and so I eat 6, and I'm like, okay, now I'm grossed out. And so I eat 6 more, and then I'm like, I don't want to look at these ever again. And that typically lasts for like, that lasts for like 4 to 6 weeks. And so,
it's
one
like
day,
when a father catches his son smoking cigarettes, and he's like,
right.
You got to smoke a whole carton.
Exactly. And they never want to smoke the same exact thing is if I don't do that, then it's like, man, those 3 were good. And then I have 9 more that kind of wreck the rest of the week's nutrition, instead of just getting rid of it in one day and then not being worried about it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's crazy, because, as I kind of prepared for this, I talked to a couple of our members and a couple people. And like I said, before we actually started recording, I had some questions for you that they kind of came up with for me and for you. And one of the follow-ups to that cheat meal question is, how do you handle the next day after a cheat meal? Because, so many people have those foods and then they have that struggle just like you said, where, okay, I had 3 donuts and there's still 9 of them, sitting there, and, you're going to eat 3 the next day, and then 3 on
Yeah.
Monday and 3 on Tuesday. And, before you know it, the next week's halfway over, and there you are having eaten donuts 4 days in a row.
Right.
Um, it's crazy that every question I have, like you answered without even having to ask it. So, well done, man. No, but um, it's the one thing I wanted to touch on with that was that, typically when we talk cheat day, no matter what type of diet, I hate to use that word, but no matter what type of diet somebody is following, the stereotypical cheat day is going to involve an increase in carbohydrates
Yeah.
compared to their normal day. And the one thing that almost nobody is aware of is the addictiveness of carbohydrates. That they will actually, when you ingest carbohydrates, that they bind to the same opiate receptors in our body as things like morphine and heroin. So not only are you fighting this, like mental and emotional battle of, having eaten it, or it's in front of you, but you're getting this chemical signal from your body that's saying, hey, we really enjoyed that, and we would like it very much if you would give us more of that.
Right.
So the following day, that mental struggle is as much a chemical struggle as anything else. And most people are completely unaware of that. And that's why that mental battle is very much like, a drug addict saying,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get my fix today.
Yeah. That's why kind of if it comes in the house, it's gone by the end of the weekend. If not, then I pretty much just throw it away.
Yeah.
Or I'll take it to the gym and give it to one of the other coaches that doesn't care that much. Just because if it's there, like I said, I have a decently strong willpower, but when I get home, and eat dinner and still hungry, I'll go look in the pantry and I'm not going to grab the healthiest snack in there. I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
Rice Krispie treat sounds delicious.
Well, and there's a difference. I mean, willpower. We can only make so many decisions in a day, and
Yeah.
I forget what book this was in, but it's not really a matter of losing willpower. It's decision making fatigue, and at the end of the day, that's everybody says, "Oh, I struggle at the end of the day." Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, you're at home. Whereas most of the time you're at work and you're out of the kitchen, your brain is occupied, you're not, you're focused on something else, where, most of the time when you come home, you're exhausted, you're fried mentally, and, it's there. So one of the things that I always tell people is, you can't eat what you don't have. And that works for both good food and bad food. If you're not stocking
Right.
your kitchen with good things, then you're not going to be able to eat what you should. And vice versa, if you don't buy those things that you want to avoid, don't buy the Oreos at the store, and then they're not staring you in the face every time you open the door to the
Yep.
pantry. Because, you're only going to look at them so many times without eating them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but,
And so,
and
that's,
I'm very much like you, that all or none kind of personality. So if it's there, you're going to go until there's, nothing left. So, and the
yeah,
other
it's
thing I
hard.
wanted to touch on too, you're talking about the fasting the following day, and that's interesting that's how you approach it, because I kind of stumbled onto that, where I would have a cheat day on Saturday, like you said, and your body just feels really weird on Sunday. And when you eat, no matter what you eat, even if you eat good food, at least for me, it was, I could almost feel my body saying, we really don't want you putting food in right
Yeah.
now. So I have, it's funny, and we've never even talked about this before now, but I have the same approach where, depending on how bad Saturday is, I will fast or not fast on Sunday. So typically I'll fast for a few hours in the morning, even on a normal day, because I'm
Yeah.
drinking the bulletproof coffee, and that's, how I start my days. I'm not eating breakfast 90% of the time. So on a Sunday, if Saturday is, I guess the way I would define it is, I would have like a clean cheat, which is for me something where I eat, you know, like maybe if I'm traveling and I go to a Whole Foods and I just kill the buffet and I just have more than normal, or if I have, like on a typical day I'm trying to avoid gluten, I'm trying to avoid dairy. So if my cheat stays away from those things and I feel okay, then I won't fast all the way through Sunday. But if I have a
Right.
cheat where I'm eating, real donuts and real ice cream and real pizza, where I've got that dairy and gluten and stuff in my system, then I'm going to fast all day on Sunday. And it's just a decision that you make ahead of time. And there's
Yeah.
no, well, maybe I'll have this or I want that or anything. You've got to draw that line in the sand. And most of the time on those days, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but I don't even want food. There may be a small period of the day, early afternoon or kind of late afternoon, somewhere in that 2 to 5 or 2 to 6 window where your stomach will kind of rumble and you start to get hungry, but the thought of actually putting something in makes you kind of turn your nose up and you're like, I don't really want to do that. And if you just
Yeah.
drink like tea or something else, that seems to help me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I stumbled across it anyway, was on those days where I would just kind of really blow it out, the next day, because I wasn't working out or anything and not doing really anything on Sundays, is I wouldn't even be hungry or even think about food till like 2:33 in the afternoon. And then it was like, okay, I'm starting to get hungry. Don't want anything. And then about 6 is when I was like, all right, I need to eat. And then it's just started looking back and being like, well, now I see, well, look at all the calories I consumed yesterday and kind of, how much energy probably my body has from the carbs to begin with, that if I started eating early Sunday morning, that doesn't get utilized. And so it's going to end up going, getting stored and no need for it. And I don't need it and I'm not using it to train. And so it just kind of, I never got hungry. And so then it just became, well, let's try it if I just have like a really bad dinner and eat clean the rest of the day. And then when I'm starting to get hungry about 11 a.m., noon, and then just kind of started working back. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then if it's bad all day, then I'm just going to pretty much fast till like dinner or even all the way through Monday and then or until Monday morning. And if it's, just a bad dinner and the rest of the day is pretty fine, then, I'll have a dinner or a light lunch, something like that, and just kind of working backwards. And it's worked really well.
Yeah. And that's, you said something in there too that was, I think is really important. On those days where I fast, I don't train. And is that how you do it too? You're not training on those
Yeah,
days?
no.
Right.
I think I would die. I might go on a walk with my family or like the aerobic stuff now, try that, but no, nothing intense, nothing that requires me to actually think and concentrate. And because I kind of have that cloud over me after the initial fast sets in, when I'm kind of pushing what my body's longer than what my body's used to without food.
Yeah. And, using the HRV, I know you're not doing all the way on the HRV yet, but when I do the HRV, I see kind of a trend of where if it gets weighed down for a couple of days in a row, then I start to recognize those feelings, that we can feel without the numbers that says, hey, I think I'm ready for this cheat day or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But then also afterwards, you see kind of, a big boost in that HRV in the following couple of days, then your body is just really, firing kind of on all cylinders because of that metabolic boost. So,
Right.
well, cool, man. I really think that we've covered a lot, and I don't want to go too much into anything else because I think that's about all the time we have. But we definitely want to do a follow-up and get some information on how your doctor's visits, dentist visits, and with your heart rate stuff goes. But before we get to the final question that everybody answers, where can people find more of you?
I got a blog. It's dcstrength.com. Is kind of where I update stuff. Our YouTube channel is DC Strength as well. You can find that. That's kind of where the majority of the info goes to. And then pretty much on Facebook, you can hunt me down. Just search David Claiborne, and either my personal profile or page will pop up, and you can contact me through there.
Awesome. All right. Well, here's the last question that you get to answer today. Everybody that comes on has to finish with this. It's our 1-2 close, and the first part of it, so it's one question, 2 parts. First part is, if somebody takes away only one thing from this podcast, What's the most important thing that you want them to take away from this today?
I think kind of the general thing that sums it up is to be aware with what they do and pay attention to kind of what their body, listen to their body, and not just take kind of what everybody else says, you know, in terms of nutrition or training or all of that, you know, pay attention and really study and figure out kind of what your body needs and what your body wants. Then that's what's going to give you kind of the best results and keep you the healthiest.
Awesome. All right. And in part 2 of that is off topic. If you could only give our listeners one piece of advice to live a more kick-ass life, what's the one thing that you would tell them?
Don't stress.
Awesome.
I mean, kind of, you know, whenever you start getting overwhelmed or whatever, you know, sitting and just kind of, as weird as it sounds, take that who cares mentality is, you know, kind of, is it really going to, you know, be the end of the world? For example, like when I was running late on this and started worrying about it and stressing on it and being like, oh, crap. And then it was like, who cares? We can do it Monday, you know, I'm going to get it done. I'll make sure that it gets done, but I'm not going to, you know, have it ruin my day because that one thing where it's not a huge, you know, a huge issue.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's, you know, ask yourself, in 6 months, is this still going to be affecting me? Or in 5 years, you know, am I going to even, is this even going to be on my radar? So if the answer is no, then, you know, let it go.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, DC, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate your time, and hope you guys have a great weekend. Everybody that's listening, thank you for listening. Make sure you check out houseofstrengthgym.com for the blog version of this, and we'll have all the show notes, links to DC and Genesis Fitness and Performance, 832 CrossFit, all the information that you would want to know about how to find DC and get more on all the stuff we talked about today. So that's it. Till next time, have a good one. We'll see you later.